In last season, we told you about infrastructure. We talked about infrastructure and how we heat the elephant barn, Jerry. And this episode, we are going to discuss just that, this machine behind me.
We'll be right back. Hello, welcome back to Southern Oregon Safari.
And we're the Buffalo Roam.
I'm Jerry.
I'm Hayden.
Hayden. I'm glad you're still Hayden.
Still Hayden.
Yeah, okay.
I had to think about it.
And this is season 3. Welcome to sticking around and showing up.
Thank you.
And thank you guys. We've got over 200 subscribers now. It's working well. We're hoping to get more subscribers so we can start getting the algorithms really pumping, yeah.
So please share.
It helps.
Like, subscribe.
Yes, it helps
share
us
with your friends
get
and your
to
family.
monetization.
It's Thanksgiving. Please share it with all your family members at the Thanksgiving table. Say, hey, have you seen Southern Oregon Safaris? We're the Buffalo Roam.
Hey, yeah, we got a lot of things to share and offer. Speaking of sharing and offer, share with us about this beast. I see him in the magazines all the time. I see him pop up on the internet all the time. You've got one.
I've got one. Wood boiler. So this one is made by a company called Earth, and I believe they're in Wisconsin. I could be wrong on that, so don't hold me to it. But this is the Mountain Man 505. It's the largest one that they make. There's lots of companies that make these wood boilers. Sometimes some people call them different things. Hydronic. You've heard of hydronic flooring, where they pump hot water into the floor of a house or a building, and that heats and it radiates the heat. And so these are great for that. These are great for heating any kind of structures. Now, in most states on the West Coast, these are illegal, most of them, for residential use because EPA.
Okay,
Thank you, EPA.
This is not hooked up to your house, though.
No, we're using this agriculture-wise, so that makes it legitimate and legal in the state of Oregon. If it's used for agriculture, then it is legal. Now, there is a company called Central Boiler, and they make a fantastic unit, but it's very pricey. It's fully automated, and it is EPA. They have an EPA-certified unit that they can sell you that can go on your residential application.
Good to know. Good to know.
I would love to have one, but they're really pricey. Now, the nice thing about them, though, is they are fully automated. This one is kind of a bare bones, which I kind of like because it's simple. It's a simple system. It doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles. It doesn't have autopilot or auto light. If it goes out, it goes out. So you got to kind of watch it. It does require a lot more cleaning. It's not got any kind of self-cleaning or anything like that. If you maintain this sucker, it'll last forever. They use these all over the Midwest. I mean, you find these in Minnesota, Michigan. They're the best thing on the planet because A, they have lots of firewood. Fuel is very expensive heating fuel. And so when it gets 20, 30 below, this thing will heat. Now, the other thing that's cool about this thing is this thing, again, this is their largest unit that Earth makes, the Mountain Man 505, at least up until when I bought it. Maybe they've made another one, but this was the largest one. This will heat up to 4 applications. You can do 4 applications on one unit. So I have one building, the elephant barn, heated off this unit.
A big unit for a big unit.
It's a big application, but you can literally send the hot water in 3 other directions to 3 other structures and heat those. So one of the other things I'd like to do is I'd like to start heating my water. You can use a heat exchanger that you can put in a water heater tank and heat your water with it too. I'm not doing that right now, but that is eventually the plan, is to run another line over to a holding tank and heat the water for the elephants, so I don't have to use the gas to heat. Now, we do still have a gas or propane heater in the building. We kept it in there because it was always in there. It's very costly to run. It's very inefficient, but for a backup emergency situation, if heaven forbid something happened with this unit, I still have a second source of heat. Or let's just say the temperatures got so darn cold that this thing couldn't keep up, which I'd find hard to believe. This thing puts out some crazy BTUs. I mean, it puts out, it gets the water up to 160 degrees easily, and it will just keep that water going, and it eats some wood.
I bet you had it cranked high last night because it got
down to 30.
Cold.
Yeah, we're in November, into November here, so happy Thanksgiving, everybody. It did get cold last night. We got down. That's one of the coldest nights we've had so far this year.
Yeah, I had to go literally turn the heater on in my greenhouse.
Yeah, we had everything cranked up for all the animals, and I would love to have one of these on every structure because the rhinoceros I'm still heating with electricity. Very costly.
Ouch.
Yeah, the tortoises are still on electricity.
Ouch.
Yeah. But these units normally are anywhere from about 9 to 12,000. The big problem is the cost of shipping. because they're coming from the Midwest. So by the time you ship these bad boys, you're looking about $3-4 grand just in shipping. Now, I was very fortunate, and I think you know the gentleman.
I do. He's a fellow YouTuber.
Yes, and he's a great guy. Dr. Dave, that's all the information we'll give you on this one. But Dr. Dave had bought this thing when he was back in the Midwest, was going to put it on one of his applications, and instead of it getting used, it wound up sitting in his field for a number of years. So it was not new when I bought it. You can't say used because he had never connected it, or it never had a fire in it. Never been connected to anything. So it just sat in his field for probably 4 or 5 years, I guess.
Pristine.
But it was pristine. It was brand new. I mean, it just sat there. So I got a really good deal. He gave me a smoking deal. I think I gave him, I want to say $5 or $6 grand for it. I can't remember now. But I didn't have to pay the shipping, and it was still a new unit. Now it was minus the warranty.
Yeah, you just lives right down the road. You didn't have to ship it very far.
No, just right here. It's pretty easy. But it's a heavy son of a gun. It's all steel. And so basically what it is, you've got this shell housing of metal, corrugated metal, the same stuff you use on your roofing. And then it's heavily insulated. So you've got these 2 burner boxes. You got one giant burner box. And when we'll have to zoom in here, and later on with the camera we'll get a tight shot of that. But this box is probably about 4 feet deep and about, what do you say, about 36, 38 inches wide, right? And it's round. So it's this big steel burner box. This thing will hold a tremendous amount of wood. And when you have really cold nights, you fill this thing up and you put the wood up the sides. This thing will burn 12, 18, maybe 20 hours, depending on how cold it is. And it also depends on the quality of the wood. If you got really good dry wood that's a hardwood, this thing will burn a long time. I burn a lot of pine, which burns quick because it's a soft wood, but I burn it because I have so much of it.
Yeah.
I've got so much wood. And the ash, the big problem with your pines and all your softwoods, you get a lot of ash. No big deal. I got a pile of ash. And this is biochar. I don't know if anybody knows anything about biochar, but biochar is really cool stuff. So this is a really good, it's, carbon and all that and ash mixed together. Really high quality fertilizer for one. But that's biochar that comes out of that. So this thing, it's pretty much airtight, and when it gets so hot that what it does is it starts burning the gases off the wood, and that's what you want to do. You want to get it nice and hot, and then once you close it all up, it starts burning the gases rather than the wood, and that's what makes it burn longer. Creates and burns a lot of energy,
and you got cleaner emissions coming out.
You got some clean. It put out some smoke, and that's why this one's not EPA certified. And again, that's the only why it's only legal to use in an agricultural situation. This is not exactly the cleanest burning one. The central boiler meets all the EPA requirements. They've got all kinds of emissions on that damn thing, which probably makes it burn more wood, because we know every time you try to stop pollutants from going anywhere, you're losing somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to lose your energy somewhere. This thing is pretty energy efficient, though. It burns the wood up, and it does require, a little bit of care. We got to clean that. Clean it about every other day. It's got water in the top. There's a big tank in the top that's got water, so it's heating water. And people always wonder, well, how does the hot air get inside there? It's not moving air; it's moving water. So what it does is it boils the water, heats the water to 160 degrees up in this tank up here, which is, again, is heavily insulated. So even when the fire's out like it's out right now, it will stay hot for 12 hours.
Now you have a pump that pumps the water.
This thing has an electric pump on board. They call them, what is that pump called? A taco pump. They call them taco pumps. It's a little pump, a 3-speed pump, and it can handle the hot water. And so this thing has a 4-inch corrugated plastic pipe that goes underground into the building, and it's pumping water and circulating back and forth. So it basically pumps it in, and then it circulates and comes back to the tank. So it's just constantly circulating that water back into this tank up here. So the thermostat keeps the water at 160 degrees. Inside that corrugated 4-inch is 2 lines of PEX, a blue one and a red one. The red one's the hot water going into the building, the blue one's the cold water coming back. It's not cold, but it's cooler. And it comes in and just keeps circulating. That's all that pump does. This little teeny pump, the only electricity this thing really needs is that little teeny pump that doesn't use very much energy. It's a very, very efficient little pump.
So you could basically run it off a little inverter,
you can do it with 12 volt. Yeah, people have done it.
Yeah,
it can be done with 12 volt. In fact, if the power goes out, that's probably what you'd want to do is go to 12 volt. But so that pump just basically circulates the water into the building. Inside the building, we have a evaporator, if anybody knows what an air conditioning system or anything, or a heat exchanger.
Okay.
Think of a radiator in a car. You're pumping the water through the radiator, and as that air hits that radiator, it cools down the air or the water or the coolant, and that keeps the motor at a certain temperature, right? Well, it's kind of the same process. It's pumping into this thing. It looks like a radiator. We'll look at that in a minute. It's about a 4-inch thick piece of aluminum with all the grills like on a radiator with coils inside of it.
Okay.
And that water's running through there, and then a fan blows behind that and pushes that hot air into the barn. And there's a thermostat that kicks the pump or the the fan on and off. So the pump never stops pumping hot water in there. But what happens is the thermostat, as the temperature gets up in the barn to a certain temperature, thermostat turns off the power, fan shuts off, and now the water's just pumping through, but it's not blowing into the building. That's how
it's just circulating.
It's a really simple design. This thing is amazing. The only other electric that goes to it is there's a fan right inside here. And so what happens when the water starts cooling below 160 degrees, the electric fan kicks on. What happens? Blows air over your wood that's maybe just smoldering at that point, and that air wakes that fire up and gets it hot, and that's how they control the heat. Is all controlled with this little fan. So that's it. It's really simple. The water drops temperature, fan comes on, blows air onto the hot coals in the wood, gets the wood to the flame to start burning hotter. The temperature on the water goes up. When that water gets 160 degrees, fan turns off, and it sits and just smolders.
So it's just all thermostatically controlled.
It is thermostatically controlled, but instead of it's just such a simple process the way they built this thing. I mean, some of I know the central boiler has doors and valves that open up. So when temperature gets too hot, what it does, it opens up a door on the top, and then it allows ventilation and vents the heat up through the roof instead of into your building. And it's a cool design, but way more complicated. A lot more parts to break. You got all these moving parts. You know, this thing is hot and it's full of ash with a lot of dirt. It's just not a great environment for electronic components.
Okay.
So they were really smart in keeping this thing the least amount of electronic and moving parts possible. There's just a little flapper door in here that shuts when the fan goes off, and it's just a weighted piece of metal. So it's just really simplistic, and it's a pretty smart design. But again, you can't use this residentially in the state of Oregon and most of your West Coast states. Unfortunately, we live in that part of the world where everybody's worried about everything. And then basically, when I need more water, I check the water level. Water comes up here. You just throw this valve on, and water will come in. And we see water come out, and you know your level, your water's full. Nice. The only other thing you have to do, this is a little light thing. Oh, I guess it's off. I unplugged it. Sorry, with the fan running. The other thing you do every once in a while is you put a conditioner in the water. It's actually a stabilizer, or what it does, it keeps the water from corroding, because as you know, electrolysis happens when you eat water.
Yeah.
So it's to keep it from calcifying electrolysis and eating the metal tanks. There's a metal tank preserve type chemical that you put inside the water to keep that from happening. You got to check that every once in a while. Okay. But it's a really very low maintenance unit. And again, that water is it's an internal. It stays internal. It doesn't. It's a closed system, so the water doesn't go anywhere. So people are like, oh, chemicals in the water, that scares people. But it stays closed. It doesn't go anywhere. So no water. Nobody's drinking the water. It doesn't go to anything like that. It just literally circulates in the system. So we'll clean this thing out real quick, and then we'll put some more wood in it, and then we'll go inside and check it out. We didn't have a lot in there, so I'm gonna go ahead and restoke this thing real quick. So the other thing I wanted to tell you, Jared, is we talked about the reusing and recycling, upcycling. The elephants eat the buckbrush, which is the small leaf round leaf ceanothus we spoke about. And so the thing about the ceanothus or the buckbrush is it's highly, highly flammable. It's full of oils, which is probably why the elephants like it so much, and it's really healthy for them because it's full of really good, rich in oil. And
also why it makes it so volatile in this neighborhood.
That's why it becomes
wildfires.
Big wildfires. So, I mean, the buckbrush out here is gasoline. It's like almost like juniper bush.
Yeah.
It is like gas. So, but the cool thing is the elephants eat the buckbrush, but there's some leftovers all the time, like these sticks that we see. And so when they're done, they get all the leaves off it. You wind up with a bunch of sticks. Here's some that are chewed up. So this is the buckbrush after they're done eating it, and they've chewed all the bark and they eat all the leaves off of it, the tasty parts, and we wind up with these piles of sticks everywhere. Well, what do you do with it? It's great to start fires. So when we want to start a fire up, we throw a couple handfuls of this stuff in there, and then we put our wood on top of that, and boy, this stuff
great kindling
takes off. And so it's kindling, and it also keeps the thing really when you want to get it caught up heat-wise and you're got a little behind, maybe you didn't put wood in it quick enough, and also the box gets a little cool, throw a couple handfuls of buckbrush, it'll get back up to 160 degrees in no time. So, again, we're recycling. I mean, this is great, because I love this, because the elephants get to eat it, and the leftovers winds up heating the barn for them.
Nice.
So they create their own kindling.
And the only byproduct from it is
ash.
Elephant turds and ash.
Exactly, ash and biochar. So we're going to throw some logs in here. I got some oak we're going to throw in today. Here's some oak.
Hardwood ash is great for a lot of varieties. I throw hardwood ash into my pond when it gets choked with algae.
You know what that is?
Madrone.
Madrone or laurel, and this is a real hardwood. This is all over this valley, and this is some of the best firewood you could use. This stuff is really dense, very slow burning, low ash. Again, you know, dry, good quality wood, good seasoned wood is really important with this thing. It will burn moist wood, but you get a lot of smoke, and it's very inefficient that way. So we try to use as much dry wood. But again, we use a lot of pine as well because it's everywhere, and I'm trying to get rid of some of the pine that I've knocked down. And some of that pine's not good for anything else but firewood.
Yeah, you got quite the pile over there.
Yeah, you don't really want to run it in your house because the ash is not good. It builds up in your chimney, but this thing doesn't care. It's got a short chimney on it. We don't have to worry about clogging chimneys up. We don't have to worry about chimney fires. And this thing gets so hot and the chimney's so short, it burns and cooks all that creosote out of that chimney in seconds. So we don't have to worry about that. So the pine,
good to know.
This thing burns up pine. They also make this, you can buy them in a pallet burner. So people that have lots of pallets, they make a pallet burner version. People go, what would be the difference between that and a pallet burner? Well, the nails, super corrosive, when they get hot, they damage the metal, the steel and steel with the heat. Those nails damage the thing, so they're specially treated burner box.
Yeah.
But you don't really want to run nails and screws in this unit. It's not good for it. So sometimes we'll throw something in there, we find a nail or a screw, we try to get it out of there because you don't want it eating at the metal. But they do make these in a pallet burner version, so people that have a tremendous amount of pallets, you go in some of these places where there's where, you know, maybe places where the economy's bad, and they don't have a lot of money, they can't afford heat fuel, wood's hard to come by. They can get pallets all day long, and there's a lot of companies that'll give you free pallets to get rid of them.
Yeah.
And they'll just run it in their pallet burner, and that's how they heat their house, which is
Nice.
pretty brilliant, really.
Free fuel.
So we'll
free heat.
One more big piece of Madrone. I'm not going to fill it up tonight because it's still kind of warm, and we won't fill it up till tonight when the elephants go to bed is when we'll fill it up completely.
Okay.
But I want to keep it burning through the day, so I put a couple logs in there, cleaned it out, put a little buck brush in there, and then I'll just smolder like that. You can see the smoke coming out now. We'll turn the fan back on in a second. We turned it off for sound purposes. But right now the box in there is about 145 degrees. We want it back up to about 159, which it'll do pretty quick. Okay. So let's go and check out the inside and see how this thing works on the inside.
Okay. We're inside now.
So we're inside the barn here, the elephant barn, and as you can see, what we have above us is that evaporator heat exchanger I was telling you about. Like I said, it's just basically almost a thick radiator. The water pumps in, pumps out. It's heavily insulated. It's all underground outside. And it comes in here. You've got a valve here, a pressure relief valve down here. We'll get in close in a little bit. I'm going to plug it in because right now it's unplugged, so we don't have the fan on.
Go ahead and plug it in.
I bypassed the thermostat because it's not warm enough for it to kick on. So we're going to plug it in. You're going to have some sound in the background. But we're going to show the temperature change in here. Or actually, let's first do the. You're going to see even with it off, it should still be hot. Point this out there. We got 124, 125, there's 122, 123. Let's get right there. 127 degrees. So that water is going through that exchanger right now is 127 degrees. So as soon as I plug in and bypass the thermostat, we're going to feel some really hot air coming in. So bypass the thermostat, and we'll watch how fast that thing heats up this room, this building. It's a big building, really high. Yeah, so about 15 minutes. This building, I get this building down to 45 degrees on a cold night. Shut the door, turn this heater on, and have it up to 65, 70, 20. Nice. Right now we're blowing about 105 degrees.
Nice.
Done.
And the girls stay warm throughout the winter, so that's how you heat an elephant barn.
Exactly. And then if I have to run that gas heater up on the top of the roof there, that thing burns through some propane. Very inefficient. Burns a lot of propane. The building is not efficiently built. It's not very well sealed. It's got this big 20 by 20 metal door, lots of metal inside. So that thing runs non-stop and it burns the propane like nobody's been doing. The wood burner, I got free wood. Yeah. So we don't have to worry about plug it so we can sound back. Plug this back. That's in a nutshell. So I mean, it's a real.
No, it's an elephant barn.
Or it's an elephant barn with an elephant heater, and it's just cool because it saves a tremendous amount of money. I've got an unlimited amount of firewood, so it just makes sense.
So the cows will be warm.
The cows will be warm.
Yeah, that's cool. I've often wondered how those things run. You just see pictures of them, try to read as much possible in magazines, and they don't give a whole lot of detailed information. But seeing one actually working, it gives me a better concept of how it's working. But unfortunately, like you said, we have to really pay arm and leg to get the EPA certified one to be able to hook up here.
It costs an absolute fortune. You're looking at about 15 grand for their smaller unit, just for the unit. And I don't even think that includes any installation or just the heat exchanger itself and the fan. That's about another $1,500 right there.
Wow.
So it can add up. And then the piping, the stuff, the tubing that goes underground. I told you about the corrugated tubing with the tubing. That stuff's heavily insulated that goes underground. That stuff's like $20 a foot, I believe, or 18 bucks a foot. It's expensive.
Wow,
I actually made my own.
Oh, cool.
It was really, so it's actually pretty simple. I'm surprised nobody it seems like everybody should make their own. It's way better than trying to buy it.
Well, you're a very resourceful person anyway.
But the other thing, like I said, a lot of people, if you've got a modern home, the best way to do it is hydronic. And I wish I had done that when I built this barn, but I'd had to pour the concrete slab with the tubing in the floor, and we were not prepared to do that back in the day when we built this barn. But if I ever had to redo it again, I'd put the hydronic flooring in it and then heat the floor, because that heat coming out of the concrete, that heats the building really efficiently.
So this gives you an idea of the size of structure and space that furnace is heating and keeping warm, especially how cold is too cold
For elephants?
For elephants that when they need heat.
In the wild, it does get down to freezing. I mean, in Africa, you go to South Africa, it'll get down to 29, 30 degrees. It doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen. It gets cold. And so they're capable of surviving those different temperatures. And you think about prehistorically, the elephants of prehistoric times, the mammoth, of course, they had fur and stuff, but they were living in icy climates, ice age climates. But the elephants don't really like it below 50 degrees. I try to not let them experience too much. They can be outside in 30, 40 degrees, but I only let them out there in that temperature for an hour, maybe 2 hours tops. Once they start acting like they're cold, I bring them in and heat them up. We also, remember we discussed, we give them warm water to drink. So
yes, to warm their innards out.
Yeah, and you got to figure if you got 20 gallons on board, or 15, 20 gallons of water in your stomach and it's warm water, you're going to sweat. So even when they're cold, I can heat their bodies up real well. And so that really helps the efficiency of heating the barn as well as keeping their core warm. In turn, they produce more heat energy. So that helps the heat, and that means that the wood burner comes on less and burns less wood. Because as long as that fan stays off, it's burning less wood. When the fan's on, it's burning more wood. So if their bodies are warm and that whole building's warm, you're burning less wood.
That makes
sense.
It's
all kind of like a cycle. It took a long time to really figure out how to make that work, but it works really well. And so, even before we put them out on a really cold morning, I want to get them out for a couple hours during the day. I don't want them locked up in the building. So we fill their stomach with nice warm water. It's like you drinking 10 cups of hot cocoa, and then we send them out, and they're even when it's freezing, they're like, woo, they're sweating. And then eventually their core will get a little cooler, and then it's time to come in and we bring them in. Nice. But this is about a 1,600 square foot building, but you got to figure the roof is a 24-foot roof. So you got all
heat raises.
You got all that built, and again, all steel, not really well insulated. This big giant roll-up door is not insulated, so this thing is just very inefficient. But that wood boiler, it does the job.
Good to know. Well, thank you, Hayden, for the introduction on heating an elephant barn with this wood boiler that you have, the wood boiler system, and you got it for a great price, too.
I did. Now he's got to convince Earth to send us another one for the Rhino building.
Yeah.
Earth, here's your commercial.
Yeah, send one for Spike the Rhino.
Spike the Rhinoceros.
Yeah. Thank you guys for showing up and sharing our adventures with us here at Southern Oregon Safari.
Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Helps our algorithm.
Yep. I'm your co-host, Jerry.
I'm Hayden.
And this is Southern Oregon Safari.
And we're the buffalo roam.
Be sure to subscribe, click that bell icon, that alerts you to new videos as we upload them. Share our videos on your social media platforms and with your family and friends. Be sure you have a really nice Thanksgiving and don't go out and get what do they call those? A turkey coma.
A turkey coma.
A turkey comas, yeah. I love them, but once a year is about enough.
Exactly.
Be safe, always be kind, and go have an adventure.
Thank you.